Okay, gang, this is basically to rush you guys. I'm going to do another video talking about better ways to deal with low and high res baking, even with 90-degree angles and all that. But I really want to rush you guys through to the next level, which is obviously getting this thing in Unreal. There's two ways of doing that. One is literally exporting the textures and then exporting the geometry and bringing that into Unreal and plugging everything together, which I'll show you guys how to do. There is also a really cool plugin which actually works in Substance Painter, and it links to Unreal, which is really cool. It's all free. So I'm going to show you the long way. The other way is the Unreal link up, which is really cool. I have that plugin currently in here, which is I believe it's called DCC Live Link. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But obviously you got Blue, who's working on getting stuff into Unreal. But here you have your finished work, and you're like, how the heck do I get this in Unreal? Well, you can export your mesh. You can see here's the export mesh, and this is going to export it in different forms. You could do OBJ if you wish, or FBX. It doesn't really matter. Or you could just export it straight out of Maya. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to do it in Maya. I prefer just to do it in Maya. So here's the low res mesh. Again, we're not exporting the high res mesh. We're exporting the low res mesh. And I'm going to do export selection. And we're going to go ahead and choose, I believe you could use FBX. I hope I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. I think you could do OBJ and FBX. So I'm going to go ahead and export that, and I will save it in a new folder here called Dumb Pillar Export. Now you need to organize all this stuff and everything that you're going to be obviously revamping textures and so forth. You want to keep a folder system, a hierarchy structure that is something that as a team you probably want to try to get something like Perforce or SourceSave or some kind of system where people can check in and check out files. That's the way studios work. You don't just like, oh, hey, Billy, you got that texture done? Okay, now give me it. I'll put it on the hard drive. Oh crap, someone erased the hard drive. And then you guys are all screwed. These check-in, check-out systems, and again, if you want to ask Chris or Dan or anybody else about this, you can. They do have them. Some of them are free. SourceSave, I believe, is free. It's a way to check in, check out files, almost like an online library, and it makes it so there's backups in case some crazy nutcase deletes all the files. So you have a disgruntled worker and or teammate, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna mess over the entire team, erase everything," and then you guys are all like sitting there going, "Oh crap, we didn't back it up," So long story short, that's what we use in studios is sort of like a tree system. All it is basically a tree system of folders, folders within folders within folders. Nothing too crazy. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this out, and we'll call it the pillar. Whatever, Unreal Mesh, whatever, doesn't matter. You can even use the OBJ that we exported out earlier. You don't have to do this, but I like to keep everything organized in one folder for one specific item. All right, let's jump over to Substance, and here we were last time, and I talked about this last time. You can go to Export Textures, because that's what you're exporting out, is textures here. You can export meshes, like I showed you in Substance Painter, or meshes, I should say. And you want to make sure that your config is set to Unreal Engine 4 Packed, which gives you this, as you can see. Lambert. Now, if you're kind of annoyed with this whole Lambert naming, because this is what the actual PNG is going to be called, you can go ahead and close this. And over here by your texture set list, you can see this is the mesh itself. I could just, call this Dumb Pillar, and just so the naming convention works. And then I'll do File, Export, Textures. And again, now you can see it's dumb pillar, low dumb pillar, base color. Okay. PNG 8-bit is fine. We're not bringing 16-bit files in Unreal. 2048 by 2040, you can actually change the resolution of this and have everything reproject that you just painted. Remember, substance files can get very big. I'm warning you that right now. You're talking maybe 700 megabytes per file. So when you save iterations of this, you could better have some hard drive space. But why the files are so big is because it literally records every movement that you do. Everything that you do is being recorded. Because this is a projection program, right? You're moving around the object, you're projecting images on it, right, in a 3D form. So it's recording everything. So when I switch this over to something like 4K or even 8K, notice they say experimental because sometimes it doesn't work. you're going to find that it's going to take a couple minutes, but then it's going to reproject all these little hand projections into a higher resolution. So even though you're working on a crappy computer with a terrible graphics card, and it's making it faster for you to maneuver and work in the 2K format, when you're ready to go, you can basically redo all your work in 4K by just clicking 4K and exporting a 4K map. So don't worry about your video card, although it might look a little bit lower resolution. When you're ready to go over to 4K, you can do that. It's really cool. It's like having all your Photoshop work, all the things you did, but projected in 4K as opposed to 2K. So there is a really cool compatibility of resolution back and forth on that. So this is the files that they're going to be called, and this is all the blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to go ahead and put my export my folder stuff to that folder that I had, dumb pillar export, where my OBJ is at. So now you can see it's there. It's PNG, it's 8-bit, it's Unreal, and here's the color. Base color, occlusion, roughness, metallic. Those are grayscale maps put in the R, G, and B channel. The normal, and then the emissive, which is the glow-in-the-dark East type stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and say export, and it'll go through the whole process, blah, 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 blah. And you might see this export finish with some warning, see log, and you see the log down here is saying, hey, there's no opacity. Oh no. Now yellow warnings are okay, red warnings are bad. So because this actually has an opacity option in here in the base color, the fact that we don't have opacity, and you can have opacity in here, like I said, you can paint opacity by creating one right here. You could have like, I don't know, like grids that people are walking on. There's transparency. That's a possibility. But just telling you that nothing got printed to the opacity channel in the actual base color. The opacity stuff is printed in the RGBA of the base color. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say open folder. Let's just look at it. You can see everything is looking beautiful, and we got our mesh in there. So let's go into Unreal. While we're at it, and you don't need this right now, but if you go to your Unreal setup, again, Unreal's free. You can download it, install it. It takes up a lot of space. Before I launch the engine, I'm in the marketplace, and I just search Substance. And you'll see a Substance plugin here, and we're going to talk about this as a faster feedback where literally you're working inside a Substance Painter, and you literally click over to Unreal when it's open, and you could watch it inside of Unreal change. It updates the textures live, which is really cool. A little bit of a workaround, but it's really fun to do this because you might want to see how the lighting of your scene is affecting your actual objects. Because you can make a really beautiful looking thing inside of Substance Painter and then bring it into the engine, and you're like, oh my gosh, that normal map looks terrible, or it's too intense, and da-da-da. Has to do with the lighting, has to do with the ambient lighting. There's a lot of things that can affect something that'll look beautiful in one program, but when you put it on Unreal, you're like, we got to dial back on that. So you can install this. It's for free. I don't know why it's telling me to install. I think I already have it. Maybe there's an update, I guess. Whatever. They might talk about updates in here. There is a couple of YouTube videos that kind of go over how to do this, which is really cool. And then here's some really cool comments. I think I'm in here complaining somewhere. Opacity, I think transparency doesn't work. Opacity doesn't work with this plugin yet. You have to sort of manually rig it up inside the shader network inside of Substance, which takes 2 seconds. No biggie. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and launch the engine. As you'll notice, my Steam VR popped up. So if you have a computer with Steam VR and Virtual Reality or HTC Vive, this will automatically pop up because it knows that I work. So I'm going to choose my project. This is a project that we're doing in our class. And I brought it into Unreal, so I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. And there is some preset VR levels, but obviously Blue is going to have all the levels set up for you. I have a feeling you guys are just going to hand the assets over to him, and he's going to bring everything in. You don't want to have multiple people tampering in the same level, because it can be a nightmare. Okay, so there's not much going on here. I have to do file, recent level. I believe this is this it? Motion capture map? Oh, I say maybe it's open level. Because you have a project and then you have levels. So it's been a while, guys. Let's see, motion control map. Let's try that out. There we go. So here I am. This is my playgrounds, as you can see. So I got my cool little ship, and I've been walking around in virtual reality in this level, which is a lot of fun. And I just started testing out different resolutions. This is the project we're doing in our design class. You can start to see me trying to get this thing in here, and I can click into play in virtual reality and jump into VR, and I'll walk around. So I guess I can show you that a little bit. So how do you bring in anything in here? Well, I want you to be aware of something, that when you bring something into inside of the Unreal Engine, textures, OBJs, they are no longer referenced. They can be reloaded, but they're no longer referenced in the sense that everything stays within a Substance Painter file. In other words, like when you make a PowerPoint presentation, when you bring all your textures in and your movies in, you save it out as a PowerPoint file, they're not linked to outside files. So if those files disappear, like a QuickTime that's linked to your actual scene or your actual PowerPoint presentation, if that's gone, you're not going to see a big like missing file in your PowerPoint presentation. Same thing goes with the Unreal's files, which can be big because you're bringing in these textures and it's saving it as one single file. Keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and just poke around here. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the object itself. So I'll say, I guess we could do import. And we'll go to my we got so much junk in this thing here. It's nuts. UV texture. And again, I could use my low res, or I could just take the low res that's in here. Blah, 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 blah. Import all. No smoothing groups. Yeah, whatever. Shut up. Okay, so here it is. You can see the little pillar. And what I can do is I can literally drag in the scene. Now, the scale is something you guys have to pay attention to when you're involved in this. So I'm going to hit the letter R and just scale this baby up pretty big. It's best to be working in real world centimeters in Maya. So you could turn it to feet if you wish. That'll work too. You can change the units in Maya to feet. And you can be it might be a good idea for all you guys to be working in real world units so that when you bring in your dish towels and chandeliers and everything, you're not working in different scales. Everybody has a relatively equal reality. So here's geometry. Now we need an actual material. So I could just right click and say new material. There it is. And there she is. I'll go ahead and call her dumb pillar. And then I'll double click it. There we go. And we're going to actually bring in materials in here. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to go ahead and bring the actual materials in here. So I can go ahead and do import again. And there's my 4 files and hit open. This is going to take some time. So now that I have the 4 maps and then I have my mesh here, I will take the material itself. This is, where is it? Dumb. I put it somewhere. Where's that dumb material at? Am I going crazy here? Pillar, Unreal Mesh. Oh, there's dumb pillar. So I'll double click that. Here we go. I will grab the 4 maps. These maps, by the way, you have to come in here and turn off certain things. So there's one thing you have to make a change with before we get started. Let me close this. And that is the Occlusion Roughness Metallic, this little pink color here. Let me double click it. You have to turn off sRGB. And the reason why is you don't want to have a gamma curve of 2.2, which is a color correction thing, which we can talk about later, affecting the grayscale of this image. And because of that, the values have to be, if the value is 0.5, it's 0.5. It's not instead of 0.7 with the sRGB added. So just make sure that this has sRGB turned off. Okay. And now we can go ahead and jump into the dumb pillar. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag in these 4 textures. Just literally drag them in. There they are. Woo. And let's go ahead and plug them in. So this is pretty obvious. This right here, if I use this little guy right here, it should plug into the base color. You can see the base color pop up. This is the normal map. So I want to do the normal. Excuse me. This is the emissive. So we'll put that into the emissive color. So you can see it's starting to glow a little bit there. And then here is the, let's find out what the heck is the order here. I keep forgetting. Occlusion Roughness Metallic. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. It's red, green, blue. So red is occlusion. green is roughness. Am I wrong about that? I keep getting this off here. What is this? Occlusion, roughness, metallic. Okay, so green is roughness and blue is metallic. Ta-da! So it's done. Let's go ahead and just close it. Now we have to just save it. Yeah, save it. Line changes. So all you have to do is take this new material here, this dumb pillar, drag it on, and there you go. So this is currently set up correctly to the scene, as you can see here. So if the lights were low, these areas here would actually glow in the dark, the red areas. And then again, game engine stuff. If you want kind of if you want it to have a really heavy glow to it and so forth, you can do that. You can do all types of things in the network itself, by the way. So you can set up all types of fun stuff. When you get into opacity, you can see there's no input opacity, but if you had an opacity channel, you could plug that in. There's other things here. What else I got here? Specularity is basically roughness. That's why you leave it empty while we're here. So that's what PBR workflow is at. So that's it. Now, let's say for some crazy reason, we have, I'll go ahead and make another pillar here and scale it up. So I'm taking that same pillar and just bringing it in. I want to talk about that cool tool I was talking about, which I probably wouldn't recommend for your projects, gang, because I don't know. I think it's cool if you had your own scene file that you were working off with some lights in it, but I highly would not recommend having, too many cooks in the kitchen walking around and having all this set up, and then everyone's getting conflicting Unreal and things. I think probably Blue should handle the importing of the textures, the updating of the textures. If you need to update something, say someone made some change here to this texture, you could right click this and say, I think it's just reload if I'm not mistaken, re-import. There it is. You can right click. I think you can grab all four of these at once. Right click and say re-import. Yeah. So you click re-import, it's going to go back and get the file. So I would keep a good folder structure inside of where you're working. You guys have to get a hierarchy folder structure. Even folder structures here inside of Unreal. You should have materials as a folder, or like a pillars or objects. Forks could be a folder within a folder. Get some sort of hierarchy going as you're kind of working through this, gang. I'm telling you right now, I've taught a lot of game design classes, both at Illinois Institute of Art and also at Tribeca. So just kind of keep that in mind. So here is this piece of mesh. Now, if you have that plugin available, I believe, I haven't done this in a while, so let me see if I can right-click, and I should see some pull-up window, unless I have to reinstall. I bet I have to reinstall the plugin. I have I have to reinstall the plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and save this level, save current, blah, blah, blah. And let's go ahead and play with the alternative, which is an interactive reality inside of here. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can see when you close something, save content, you're literally saving these files, textures, into a single level. Okay, so this stuff is being compiled in here. It's not independent. It's not being referenced. So let's install this to the engine. You can install this plugin already installed. Oh, it is installed. What the heck? Okay, so here we're back in Substance Painter. I have it plugged in, or I have it working. How do you know it's working? Real simple. I'm going to take this pillar here, and I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to say send to Substance Painter. This would not exist if you didn't have the plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and click send to Substance Painter. What does this do? It actually saves it takes the mesh and brings it into Substance. So I'll give it a couple seconds. And here we are. Where is this being saved as? Very good idea here. I think this is it. Am I going crazy? Yeah. Rest assured this is being saved somewhere. I think it's just referencing off of the file itself. I could be wrong. You see you got this little green button here. You can enable this and turn it off and on. So what does this do? Well, let's just move this over here, and I'm going to go ahead and just show you as we have both Unreal and the actual Substance open. if I come in here and make any changes to this, so I'll go over here and make a material like a brass color here. All right, if I click over here, oh, it didn't work. Lighting needs to be rebuilt. Oh boy. Okay, so I've been out of this for a while here, but I could just do build lighting only, whatever. This might take 20 years. Firewall. Lighting needs to be rebuilt. Are you relighting? Let's find out. There we go. I think it worked. Yes, yes. Oh, oh. Okay. Huh. Yeah, this thing is relatively new. Like I said, it's let's see if I change this up again. I'll throw another material in here or something. Let's see if it works. Whoa, don't want to do that. Go to Unreal. And it should update. I'm not sure why it's not up. Looks like it's there is a color going on there. Something going on. Let me try to do the build again. I'm sure you guys know this better than I do right now. Sometimes the students get ahead of the teacher. Sometimes we can become dinosaurs. Yeah, there's something going on here. It's probably specific to my scene, but you can see there is an interactivity going on here with this. You could see it's actually updating. We could just see it right here, actually. See it? Look at that. Whee! It's there. So there's a lighting setup that has to be, I guess the lighting has to be refigured in here. So what's going on in this? Well, it's just assigning all the materials. I think it's, let's see if I can find the material here. Here it is. It creates this default Lambert for you. And you can see it does exactly what we just did, right? So if you take a look at the setup, this is set to base color, this is set to normal, this has been plugged into all the little situations. It doesn't seem to update emissive. So if I had emissive in there, maybe if I had emissive, let's try that out before we kind of end this craziness here. Let's see if I add an emissive layer here. So I'll add emissive. There we go. So we have emissive now. And I'm going to go ahead and paint some emissive. So I'll say add a fill material. Say add a layer. Throw that baby on top. And I'm only going to paint emissive. So I'm going to turn off all these. Just paint emissive. Let's make it that annoying red color. And we'll paint some red, right? So it's updating live. You can turn this off at any one time if you don't want it to update. But when it's green and you click back to Unreal, right? Let's go ahead and click back to Unreal here. Yeah, whatever. Let's see if it changes. I think it did. The file came in. Let's take a look at the material here. Did it? Let's see. I don't know. Whoa! I don't know. Doesn't look like it did. I could be wrong. The actual texture came in. Emissive came in. So, I mean, you could just load this up, and I think you might have to have emissive on before you do the initial first save, maybe, because it's already set up the network for you, and it's just re-uploading the files. So in this case, you could just grab the file itself, drag it in, and then just plug it in under emissive. Let's go on, yeah, where's it? The heck's emissive? Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So now, yeah, save it. A little bit tricky, still relatively brand new. Oh, look at that, it's working. So something's wrong with my lighting. I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to jump into VR real quick. Here I am, and let's take a look. Something's going wrong here. Hold on a second. Go back in here. Oh. All right. So there it is. Something's wrong with my lighting. I have to redo my lighting or something. I don't know what's going on. So there's my thing. In virtual reality here. So this is a great way to kind of take a look at your textures and get really up and close. And I'm not going to go any more detail than that. So hopefully that helps you, gang.